You may be applying all these strategies brilliantly, but every so often all of us get stuck when we're doing consecutive without notes. You may have counted off your points 1, 2 and 3, and then suddenly you draw a blank and you simply can't remember what comes next. What can you do then? While some strategies work better than others, it's best not to start fidgeting or umming and ahhing or rolling your eyes while you try to remember what comes next. Because if you do that, you'll be giving the impression that you are involved in some kind of academic exercise and you're failing, rather than delivering a speech with conviction and addressing the needs of your audience, giving them the information that they need. The first thing to remember is that what sounds to you like a pause that is lasting 3 minutes, an incredibly, unbearably long pause, probably doesn't sound like that to your audience. And that's because pauses are part of everyday speech. They sound natural in the flow of conversation. It's perfectly normal to have pauses here and there in a conversation, and so you shouldn't worry too much about a pause. Now, if you find that the pause is becoming longer and longer and you still can't remember what comes next, there are 1 or 2 things that you can try. The first thing that you can try is to paraphrase something that you've said already. You might choose to use different words, and the idea of doing this is simply to wait and see if the missing information comes back to you. So it's a holding technique, if you like. It's a temporary stopgap. The second technique that you can try depends on the structure of the speech. It works much better with some types of speech than with others. This technique involves moving on if you get to a point where you can't remember what comes next, and later inserting the forgotten passage if it comes back to you. Now, you'll find that this technique works well if you have a speech that is simply an enumeration of arguments. It's a list of arguments. And so it won't matter if you change the order slightly because it won't affect the logic of the speech. But clearly, it's a technique that doesn't work well with other types of speeches. For example, speeches that have an argument that leads you inexorably from A to B, and if you juggle the order of the arguments, the whole logic falls down. So it will be up to you to judge whether this is an appropriate technique to use or whether it will distort the speaker's argument. If nothing works and you're having a complete mental block and you simply cannot remember anymore, then the best thing to do is simply to say thank you or thank you for your attention and sit down.